So today, inshallah, we're going to talk about 4 topics. Topic number 1 is the current situation in the Muslim economy. Topic number 2 is the Muslim economy in light of the Qur'an and Sunnah. Topic number 3 are what are some practical steps for Muslim entrepreneurship? How can we start a business? And topic number 4 is what is the Muslim founder's character and mindset? When we look at the current situation, the global Muslim GDP, PPP, which is the purchasing power parity, it's about $24 trillion. And this is basically all of the Muslim majority countries combined, their GDPs. And that's about 12.9% of the global GDP, which is 186 trillion. Now, when we look at the Muslim population, we're at about 2 billion, according to some of the latest statistics. And that's about 25% of the population of the world. So we can immediately see that as Muslims, we're really not contributing at the same pace as our population. So our economical output is kind of at least half of that. Now, just to kind of give you guys some perspective, the US economy alone, the GDP, the nominal one, is about over almost 30 trillion, and it's only 360 million people. So you can see that only the US economy alone is bigger than the economy of all Muslim countries combined. So that is a problem, right? Like this unpleasant fact that as Muslims, we don't lead a single industry end to end. Think about email. How many of you use email? All of you, right? Do you use a Muslim email system? Or do you use like Gmail or Outlook or something? Let's talk about like video conferencing, Zoom, Google Meet. Do we have a Muslim option? Instant messaging like WhatsApp, all of these, where are the Muslim options? Or let's talk about phones. Do we have a Muslim brand like Apple, Samsung? What if we go to like business side? You know, like we have a lot of small businesses across the world, Muslim businesses. What kind of softwares do they use? Well, they use all of the non-Muslim software like QuickBooks, Salesforce, MailChimp, website builders, WordPress, to house all of the data. And we're not talking just like Muslim businesses, we're talking Muslim governments, we're talking Muslim institutions, we're talking masajid, we're talking any kind of governmental or private institution or business. It's literally fully dependent on non-Muslim apps for all of its business activities. But let's get out of that. Let's go to like search and social. Where do you guys search? Do we have a Muslim search engine, or everybody searches on Google, Bing, right? Or social media, right? How do you guys get to know about this conference or this or that? Like everybody's on Facebook, YouTube, this and that. Where are the Muslim options, right? Then we go to transportation. Like we want to transport something from point A to point B in the globe. What do we need? We need DHL, we need FedEx. Where are the Muslim options? Or let's talk cars. Where are the Muslim cars, right? Like we have Toyota, we have BMW, all of those cars, but where are the Muslim options, right? Or even planes, right? We want to travel. We have airlines, but we don't really have planes. We can't produce our own planes. If the West or Asia doesn't give us planes, we can't really fly. And then we go to consumer goods. Like, do we have any Muslim brand for laptops? Or do we have to use HP, Dell, Lenovo? TVs, Samsung, even clothing, right? Like, alhamdulillah, we have a bunch of small, like, Jalabiya brands, but other clothing like Nike, Adidas, shoes, this, that, we don't have a lot of them. So what's the problem, right? So problem number 1 is that the non-Muslim companies own all of our data. Every single data point about the Muslimin, they own it. And we have no control over it. We are fully dependent on non-Muslim economies for manufacturing, technology, and even capital. And I'm not going to go into the discussion of how dollar plays into all of this, but for those who understand that topic, it's very clear. We lack infrastructure, both intellectual and material. And let's pause just a little bit on that intellectual one, right? So those two statistics that I gave earlier, let's go back to those two. I couldn't find these anywhere in any proper Muslim research company. I had to go to sources like Statista or Pew Research, because we don't really have our own Muslim research companies that we can trust that they're going to do a credible job with our own data, with our own statistics. That's the situation. Our lack of infrastructure is not just in the capital side, and it's not just in the material side, but it's also in the intellectual side. We're really not putting too much intellectual activity. And then what we do is that we're using all of these, right? So we see basically that we use everything, alhamdulillah. You know, we even see like the Gulf countries and this and that. They've kind of come to an economic standard that they live a nice, decent living, right? But then all of these, they are really not building themselves. They are bringing the outsiders to build the stuff for them. What this does is that it basically like you're neglecting the long term for the short term. When you look at like China, like 25 years ago, and when you look at China right now, they suffered to get there because they had to build everything from scratch. They had to build all of the manufacturers, but now they produce every single thing. And that's why these tariffs couldn't do anything to them, because they are able to have their economy fully within themselves, and they are fully independent. And the final thing, which is very important, is that everything that gets produced, nothing is being thought with a Muslim mindset. Everything it's disconnected from Islamic economic principles. So that is very important to understand when that happens, right? So just imagine, like, if any of you uses calendar, imagine if you had in your Google Calendar the prayer times. Why is it so difficult to get in a calendar, but we need a whole separate app instead of using the default apps of the iPhone or this or that to have the prayer times in it? Well, if these were built with Islamic principles in mind, all of those would be packaged in, because the Muslims would build those things with Islam in mind. And they would not, or for example, the social media, we have the problem of like nakedness or this or that. Well, if they were built with Islam in mind, we would not really have all of these problems, right? And a lot of these are not that difficult to achieve. But let's talk about a couple of other examples, right? So because a lot of times when we talk like in theory, we cannot relate to how big the problem is. So let's talk about this example, right? How many of you followed this case? What happens with the pagers in Lebanon? Okay, so basically what happened with the pagers in Lebanon is that Israel had full control of probably hundreds or thousands of pagers in Lebanon, and it pushed a button and it literally blew up thousands of Muslims and perhaps Christians in Lebanon. So that tells you that you enjoy other people's commodities until you realize that they are not yours and they can be used against you. So now, if you don't have control of any of your devices, if you don't have control of any of your equipment, you are left at the mercy of others. And when others are going to, when you're fighting with them, that's when you really realize the dependency you have on them. Like, let me give you guys another example similar to this. So the prosecutor that submitted the cases for Israel, the guy Karim in Britain, Microsoft just blocked his email. So now we're talking about the UN guy who's supposed to like bring justice to the world. The prosecutor, so Microsoft, it's a US company, has so much power to take now his email, and they've blocked his email. So now we're seeing like this dependence on these non-Muslim companies really harming us. This is another interesting statistic. The top 5 halal meat exporters in the world, you'd expect them to be Muslim, right? Well, guess what? They are not. Brazil is number 1. Australia is number 2. India is number 3. France is number 4. China is number 10. Number 5. So in the top 10, there is like number 10 is actually Turkey, and Sudan is number 6 or 7. But we're really talking about like halal meat. Like we can't figure out our own halal meat, and this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So this is a big problem, right? So how many of you would agree that us not figuring this out is a big problem? So should Muslims lead the world economy, or should they be dependent? What's the way forward?